Hello everyone, it's time for another herb of the month, and I hope it's a herb that actually you're going to pick up the challenge and go out once you've listened to this and make yourself a cup of this every day for the next month or so, and see how you feel about it, the wondrous things it can do for you. So the herb I'm going to do is probably one that you will all think of as a weed. It's stinging nettle, so the common stinging nettle, something Culpeper said everyone can recognise stinging nettle even in the middle of the night if you bump up against this plant, because of those stings in the little hairs on the edge of the leaf. You'll be well and truly versed with what it does to you. So a little bit of its history first of all. So the Latin, urticaria dioica, so the urticaria means to burn, so that's that red inflammation, that stinging sensation we get on our skin when we touch it. The Anglo-Saxon word for needle has led to the word nettle, so this indicates its long usage in the manufacture of cloth and cordage. Records go back to the Bronze Age of it being found in graves there. It's a long use as a fodder crop for all sorts of farm domesticated animals. It's used in food production. For example, it used to be used for rennet in cheese making. We use it now currently for wrapping cheeses. You'll see some cheese producers do that. And it's still used in industry, I think, because it's got a very high content of chlorophyll, so used for colouring. And the dye, the green dye that comes from it. So historically we know during the First and Second World War, when access to cotton became in short supply, countries went back to weaving with nettle, and Second World War we used it a lot in Britain to dye and make camouflage materials. And of course there's a lovely, I think it's a Hans Christian Andersen story, The 11 Swans, where the 11 brothers are bewitched and the sister has to weave in silence nettle shirts for her brothers, and it's thought that it takes about between 86-89 pounds of nettles to make one shirt. So long use of a fantastic herb and lots of medicinal uses, but it's a really good spring tonic. So it sits quite nicely with the herb of the month I did last, which was cleavers. And thank you for all watching that, and to all my new subscribers. Do keep subscribing. It makes my children's eyes pop out of their heads that their mad old mother is listened to by anyone else. So thanks for coming aboard. So I'm going to wander up to the garden and show you where I have my nettle patch growing. They're quite an invasive plant, but if you keep using them or knock them back and contain them, then fine in your garden. Otherwise they grow extensively along wherever human beings really are, where farming or activity of animals has been, nettles invariably abound. So let's go and have a look at them up the garden. Okay, so here we are at the top of the garden. Here's some Symphytum officinalis, otherwise known as comfrey, the white flower here. And just taking in a very delicate herb Robert there. A wonderful forget-me-not. We always know the soil's warmed up when we've got forget-me-not growing. And then here's the cleavers, which was the subject of the video last month. And then a glorious patch of nettles. So if we get up close, we can see it in its glory. All the stinging hairs are on the outer edge, and it's a very simple acid. It's a formic acid, the same as ants have. And we can actually, if we touch there, you don't get stung. And what we're going to pick is the top four. So actually, if you do this, ding. I'm not being stung by doing that, so that's one way of doing it. Or you can pick them with some scissors, with your rubber gloves, absolutely fine. So let's have a think about the constituents and why they're important to our body. So we can see it's very green, so that means it's got a lot of chlorophyll in it, as most plants have, but as I said before, it's still used in the dyeing and colouring industry because of that green chlorophyll. In terms of its nutrients, it's very rich in vitamin A, vitamin C. Major minerals are iron and calcium and potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, silica, copper, zinc. So it goes on, and there's some other micronutrients as well, which I can't remember off the top of my head. It's also very rich in bioflavonoids, so things that then are good at mopping up the it's what we call an antioxidant. It's good at mopping up the sort of decaying matter in the body. So that's the primary constituents, but it's always important not to get bogged down in that Western medical scientific mind of thinking it's all just about components, because these things are acting as a whole. So with that in mind, we're now going to have a ponder about what actions it has on our body and how that's useful to us. So having listed the nutrients, you'll understand why we've put it in that bracket of a spring tonic, so incredibly nourishing to the body. It's also long understood, if we think of it as Culpeper describes it as a herb of Mars, it being hot, and if you think about then the residue, the things left by winter or by infections, the catarrh, the mucus, we can think of people who've had lots of coughs and colds. There's been quite a depletion in the immune system of late. Maybe I'll do a video on that, not getting into too much of complicated territory, but if we deplete our immune system and challenge it in the wrong way, it's going to switch things off within itself internally, and then we'll be able to cope so well. So nettles is a really good herb for where the immune system has got compromised. So toning of the mucosa, drying up of the phlegm. It means it's working also on the lymphatic system. It's working on the excretory organs, of the main ones being the liver and the kidney and the digestion. So it's got a slight diuretic action. It's good for movements of the bowel. It's not very vigorous, say something like rhubarb or the old cenopods are far more vigorous, but it's cleansing. It's that iron content, extremely important if there's any sort of blood loss or anemia or pallor. So bleeding problems of the menstrual cycle, vegetarians, vegans who may be a bit low, it's good for them, but I'd wish they get on with eating meat, but that's another aside. It's also, in terms of that cleansing process, any autoimmune conditions like asthma and eczema, which can be mediated along that line, it's going to be very helpful for skin conditions, very good for hay fever, good tea to drink pre and during the hay fever season. I've known people do that over 3 or 4 years, and it's actually really knocked their hay fever on the head, which is a good thing to know. So it's an antihistamine. Also good for joints, arthritic conditions, rheumatic conditions. Just to get that in your head, the Romans are said to have brought across, I think they were said to have brought across the small nettle, which is packs even more of a sting, and not liking our cold climate like today, maybe April, but there's a freaking cold north wind blowing. They would whip their joints and their legs to bring all the blood to the surface and to that area and to warm them up, and I suppose you get pretty distracted by that stinging feeling rather than the cold. Yeah, it's also said that they used it for impotence, and I suspect if you whipped the male member with it, you probably wouldn't moan about impotence any further, would you? Be moaning about something else. So there are some of the key actions in terms of the human body. There's other things it's really brilliant for, so we're going to talk about those next. Quickly to say that you can chop this up, put it in a bucket outside and let it soak and make a plant feed. Number one, to deter things like aphid infestations. You can also leave it like comfrey and make a plant feed as well. So now you understand all the things that are in it, your have the knowledge base of why it's doing that. It's a very hungry feeder itself. It pulls up, loves nitrogen. That's why we see it around wherever there's humans. It follows humans around and really is a great cleanser of the soil. So lots of old farm buildings or existing, farmyards and things, you'll see it there. So just to say, if there's a very active area in any farmyard, not to take it from those areas, because it will be drawing up, susceptible to picking up any bacterial material from the fecal matter. So don't get drawn to those sites for picking. But you may have just a little patch somewhere that's clean, along a footpath or in a park, or like me, mad in my garden. You can contain it in a garden quite easily, really, I think. And you want to pick it at this time of year, any time from about March through possibly to May. It depends what the weather's doing. You're going to pick the 4 tips at the top, and the more you pick them, those bits will regrow. There's a caveat to say that there comes a certain point in Nettle's life cycle when you don't want to be using it. It's when it does look hot and angry when it doesn't want to be picked, actually. It goes a much darker, deeper green, and there's old folks sayings, don't pick the nettles when the devil's passed over it. So once the season gets hotter and drier and they are starting to set flower, they have little, you probably haven't noticed the flowers, but they're little dangly, they're like little catkins hanging down, and those will then set seed. Later on in the season, you can gather those seeds and have those as food. And the roots are also used. They've got long, creeping, tough yellow roots, and research is indicating that's really good for prostate issues. So the roots. But today I'm really wanting us to concentrate on the challenge of picking these tips and making yourself a regular cup of nettle tea. So just put it in some hot water and leave it 5-10 minutes. 3 to 4 tips in a pot. You can leave it in cold water overnight and then drink it. You can drink it either way, with it, however you've infused it, either hot or cold, and have that on a daily basis. You can use it like spinach in your foodstuffs. You can juice a little bit of it as well, and I bet my bottom dollar that once you start to drink it, everyone just says they can feel the vibrancy of the plant and how the body really responds to it and enjoys having it. So this ancient wisdom, this wonder of using the things that are in season around us and understanding the wisdom of that. So please, please, please go out and gather yourself some nettle, or maybe you've got some growing in your garden and thinking it's just a weed. It's not, it's a super herb, as I say, in my top list of herbs. So thanks for listening. Join me again, and be well and healthy, and get vibrantly strong with your nettle tea.